Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 7 Part 12 based on novel. So let's start. The Desolate Hall had an additional senior direct disciple after the end of the battle between Lin Dong and Jiang Hao. It was likely that this matter would stir quite a great commotion within the Dao sect should it be spread. After all, there was not a single disciple during these years who successfully became a senior direct disciple of any hall, after having just joined for less than a month. Chen Zhen waved his sleeves after announcing that Lin Dong was the 5th senior direct disciple of the Desolate Hall. Immediately, everyone saw the ground beside the 4 stone platforms rising. A majestic yuan power directly created a new stone platform that was of the same height as the 4 others. That spot would be Lin Dong's individual seat during the future monthly competitions. This was a symbol of status. With regards to that, Lin Dong also acted unceremoniously as his body moved and he rushed onto the platform. Haha, junior brother Lin Dong, congratulations. Pang Tong's sincere face also had a smile on it at this moment, as he spoke to Lin Dong. Fang Yun, Song Ju, and the other senior direct disciples also nodded their heads at Lin Dong. If they had previously looked down on Lin Dong because of their seniority, this mentality had been completely replaced. Lin Dong had displayed a shocking fighting strength during the previous battle and even they did not dare to underestimate him. I hope that the 4 seniors will take good care of me in the future. Lin Dong was not stingy with his friendliness in the face of their smiles. It was likely that he would train within the Desolate Hall for a long time in future. Hence, he naturally did not want to have a terrible relationship with his seniors. After experiencing the various games during the 100 Empire War, he quite enjoyed the atmosphere within the Desolate Hall. After all, no one in this world likes to be constantly fighting with others. Pang Tong and the 3 others smiled and nodded when they saw the friendly smile on Lin Dong's face. They involuntarily sighed within their hearts. Lin Dong's actions finally allowed them to understand the boldness and resolution that was buried within his bones. They had also heard about the cruelty of the 100 Empire War. In order for Lin Dong to clear a path one step at a time with his low-rank empire background, the amount of effort he had to put in would likely cause them to feel ashamed, should it be described in detail. This junior has extraordinary potential. No wonder teacher Uncle Chen Zhen and Wu Dao have such high expectations of him. The 4 of them looked at each other and saw the mutual thought within their minds. After greeting Pang Tong's group, Lin Dong finally sat down on his own stone platform and raised his head. The height of the stone platform allowed him to overlook the entire mountaintop. There was a black mass of people when he looked down. Tens of thousands of Desolate Hall disciples sat quietly in this place. Their expressions when they looked at him were filled with rich respect. Chen Zhen once again returned to his stone seat. Next, he waved his sleeve and announced the start of the monthly competition. However, those subsequent matches were naturally not as fearsome as the one between Lin Dong and Jiang Hao. However, due to the large number of people present, the scene was also quite magnificent. Branch disciples were the most numerous amongst the Desolate Hall disciples. These branch disciples were all constantly hoping to become full-fledged Desolate Hall disciples. This was because only by becoming a true Desolate Hall disciple would they possess the qualification to enter the Desolate Hall mountains and train. Moreover, they would also gain the qualifications to learn the deep and profound martial arts in Desolate Hall. Therefore, there will always be quite a number of branch disciples going all out during the monthly competition, in an attempt to unleash 120% of their own strength, hoping that they will be promoted to become a full-fledged disciple. The Desolate Hall monthly competition continued for an entire day. Its final result caused the Chen Zhen duo to feel quite satisfied. Amongst the tens of thousands of branch disciples, there were over 100 disciples with outstanding performances, who possessed the qualification to be promoted to a full-fledged disciple. At the same time, this increased the overall strength of their Desolate Hall. As moonlight gradually encompassed the Desolate Hall mountains, the mountain top, which had been lively for an entire day, finally began to gradually quieten down. As large groups of disciples began to leave, the sound of rushing wind continued to buzz over the mountaintop. Lin Dong also stood up from his own stone platform. He stretched his lazy waist and was just about to leave with Mo Ling's group, when Wu Dao suddenly appeared beside him. "Little fellow, you have performed quite well today." Wu Dao smilingly stared at Lin Dong and laughed. "Heh, teacher Uncle Wu Dao has overpraised me. It was by chance that I satisfied the criteria for practicing the Desolate Demon Eye. Moreover, I have yet to completely master it and have merely gained an initial mastery," Lin Dong smilingly said. Although Wu Dao was the deputy hall chief of Desolate Hall and he had an extremely high status, Lin Dong did not act in an overly restrained manner in front of him. "You little fellow." Wu Dao smiled and shook his head. He mused a little and said, "Currently, you are a senior direct disciple of the Desolate Hall. You should train properly from now onwards. The Great Desolate Tablet will be opened 3 months later. Whether you will be able to comprehend it will depend on your own fate." 3 months later. Lin Dong was stunned initially. Promptly, a fiery hot expression surged out from within his eyes. He clearly understood that even though he was now a legendary figure in Desolate Hall, it was merely the case within the Desolate Hall. The Dao sect was huge and the number of prodigies in the 3 other halls were as numerous as the stars. If he wanted to stand out amongst all 4 halls, he must successfully comprehend the Great Desolation Scripture. Otherwise, he would definitely end up being at a disadvantage when he faced those top disciples from the 3 other halls, who have comprehended the 3 other great mysterious scriptures. However, it was also because of his fame that many disciples in the Desolate Hall were anxiously awaiting the day the Great Desolate Tablet opened. If Lin Dong was truly able to comprehend the Great Desolation Scripture, his reputation would exceed that of the 4 senior direct disciples. In fact, he will even be able to rival the top disciples from the 3 other halls. Of course, if he failed, it was likely that he would wound up attracting some nasty gossips. His earlier performances were simply too dazzling and he can even be comparable to that fellow, who possessed an extremely high position in the hearts of the Dao sect's disciples. Hence, if he failed to comprehend the Great Desolation Scripture, it would likely cause quite a number of Desolate Hall disciples to be secretly disappointed. Compared to understanding the Great Desolate Scripture, all those previous results were hardly worth mentioning. Lin Dong looked at Wu Dao's earnest eyes before he curled his mouth slightly. For some unknown reason, it seemed like quite a lot of expectations had been placed on his shoulders. "I will do my best," Lin Dong softly replied. "Soon after the Great Desolate Tablet opens will be the hall test. The result that our Desolate Hall will achieve would likely depend on the 5 of you," Wu Dao smilingly said. "How is the strength of that big senior sister Ying Xiao Xiao from the Sky Hall like?" Lin Dong blinked and suddenly asked. "Xiao Xiao a lady with extremely great talent. Currently, she should be attempting to break through the 9th Nirvana tribulation." Wu Dao smacked his mouth. It was likely that even he coveted Ying Xiao Xiao's talent. Attempting the 9th Nirvana tribulation, Lin Dong's heart was slightly shaken. She is indeed worthy of being the big senior sister of the Sky Hall. Her strength was likely comparable to Ling Qingzhu. "I heard from your friend Lin Jiao that you have a complicated relationship with Ling Qingzhu from 9 Heaven Supreme Purity Palace." Standing in front of Lin Dong, Wu Dao suddenly said while Lin Dong was still shocked by the strength of big senior sister Ying Xiao Xiao. Lin Dong was startled. He raised his head and looked at Wu Dao's somewhat complicated expression. Immediately, he felt his face turn red. He let out a dry laughter but was uncertain about how he should reply. Could he really tell Wu Dao that he had once taken possession of that lady's body? If word of this was to spread, it was likely that there would be a countless number of people charging to Dao sect and causing trouble for him within a couple of days. TSK, little fellow, your eyesight is quite good. Ling Qingzhu is a renowned person amongst the younger generation in the eastern Xian region. Even Xiao Xiao, that lass, is overshadowed by her. There are a countless number of young geniuses from various super sects chasing after her during these years in an attempt to win the heart of the beauty. However, no one has succeeded. Wu Dao patted Lin Dong's shoulders. His smile appeared a little wretched under the moonlight. Your target is really challenging. Good luck. I have confidence in you. If you can capture Ling Qingzhu, I believe that the expressions of those from the 9 Heaven Supreme Purity Palace will be extremely interesting. Lin Dong smiled in an embarrassed manner. Wu Dao really thought too highly of him. The former clearly understood the gap between him and Ling Qingshu. Even after several years of bitter training, there was still quite a big gap between him and her. However, the current gap was already one that could be seen, and it was no longer as ethereal and invisible like back then. His effort during these years was not for naught. The current him was also no longer the same tender youth who could only look up to her. Lin Dong inhaled a deep breath of cool air. He turned his head and his eyes looked into the distance. Moonlight shone on his face, outlining a tough figure. He had already endured through the toughest time. Currently, there was no reason to give up. Ling Qingshu, I really look forward to our next encounter. After the conclusion of the monthly competition, the desolate hall turned peaceful once again. However, there were now a few more good discussion topics that appeared secretly in the discussions between the disciples. These topics naturally did not stray away from the soul-stirring fight between Lin Dong and Jiang Hao that day. News that Lin Dong managed to successfully learn the desolate demon eye had also circulated around rapidly. This inevitably caused repeated shock to people who heard it, while quite a few desolate hall disciples smacked their lips in envy of Lin Dong's talent. After the intense fight with Jiang Hao during the monthly competition, Lin Dong had managed to thoroughly secure his footing within the desolate hall. Becoming the 5th senior direct disciple caused his status within the desolate hall to soar. Every day when he met disciples from desolate hall, they would show a face of respect and bow towards him and address him as a senior brother. This was even true for disciples, who were older and more experienced than him. Although Lin Dong felt nonchalant about this kind of special treatment, it was great news for Mo Ling and the rest of the disciples, who followed Lin Dong and joined Desolate Hall. Although it was peaceful in the Desolate Hall, disputes and division into cliques were unavoidable. As new disciples, their position was considered to be the lowest as they did not have anyone to rely on. Typically, their training facilities will also be inferior compared to those veteran disciples. However, following Lin Dong's meteoric promotion to senior direct disciple, these new disciples had a backer to rely on. Hence, thanks to Lin Dong's reputation, those veteran disciples would no longer dare to intentionally create trouble for them. As such, from that day onwards, Mo Ling and the rest of them faced significantly less troubles. Furthermore, unknown to Lin Dong, there were quite a few disciples that were quietly following him. Gradually, this indicated the formation of a new clique with him as their leader. Naturally, Lin Dong did not care much about this matter and would only smile when he occasionally discovered it. He had no intention of forming a clique. However, Mo Ling and the rest of them are his friends and they all came from Great Yang Empire. Hence, if they were to run into problems, he would naturally not stand by idly. After Lin Dong's officially promotion to senior direct disciple, the current him was now formally considered as a core disciple of the Desolate Hall. As such, Lin Dong could finally enjoy the life of being a disciple in the Desolate Hall. In the subsequent month after the monthly competition, a large majority of Lin Dong's time was spent within the martial arts hall. Of course, he was not delusional enough to attempt to master the 3 other great martial arts. Hence, every time he entered the martial arts hall, he would sit in front of the desolate stone to absorb the desolate energy for his desolate arts. Other than that, he would spend the rest of his time before the desolate demon eye martial art tablet. The perverted lethality of the desolate demon eye was experienced firsthand by Lin Dong after his fight with Jiang Hao. This martial art was truly fearsome and Lin Dong only had an initial mastery over it and could barely control it. Therefore, during this 1 month's time, he spent all his time shuttling in and out of the mental space within the stone tablet. Inside there, he continuously received the dreadful attack from Huang. This training method was slightly masochistic. However, since Lin Dong had the mysterious stone talisman, he was not afraid of the fiendish corrosive strength. Thanks to this masochistic training, Lin Dong could sense that his control over the desolate demon eye was becoming increasingly proficient after a month's training. This fact brought joy to his heart. Furthermore, due to the long period of time spent within the martial arts hall, he had gotten rather close with the blind old man. This person, who appeared to be an eccentric blind old man, was rather cordial with Lin Dong. This was especially true after he learned that Lin Dong had successfully learned the desolate demon eye. Their relationship grew even stronger, and the warmth that he showed Lin Dong was something denied to Chen Zhen and Wu Dao. Between their interactions, Lin Dong found out the name of the blind old man, Ji Yu Mo. At the beginning, when Lin Dong first saw him, he was eccentric and distant. However, his status gave Lin Dong quite a shock, as he was actually an elder of the Dao sect. His status was even higher than Chen Zhen and Wu Dao by a level. Furthermore, what truly shocked him was that even though Elder Ji Yu Mo failed initially when he tried to learn the Desolate Demon Eye, and even lost his sight, thanks to his stubborn nature and determination, he was able to forcefully master it in the end. This caused Lin Dong to be secretly in awe, because only the individuals who have tried to learn the Desolate Demon Eye would understand how potent the corrosive power of the fiendish Qi was. Nonetheless, Elder Ji Yu Mo actually refused to give up even after losing his sight, and forcefully managed to master it in the end. Of course, it may have been because he had nothing else to lose. Since he had already turned blind, there was nothing else for that fiendish Qi to corrode. Subsequently, Elder Ji Yu Mo chose to give up his Yuan power cultivation and decided to focus on his mental energy cultivation. Once his mental energy was unleashed, the world that he saw was clearer than the world he previously saw with his fleshly eyes. In Lin Dong's opinion, the reason why Elder Ji Yu Mo saw eye to eye with him was likely because he had also trained in the Desolate Demon Eye. And this was how Lin Dong spent 1 month's time, in peace and tranquility. Within this month, Lin Dong gradually integrated himself into this foreign yet familiar desolate hall. After thinking for a while, Lin Dong felt like this might turn into another home for him. At the very least, even a cautious and prudent person like him did not feel put off by this place. His life within the desolate hall was unlike the ancient battlefield, where he had to be constantly on the tenterhooks and be ready for a life or death fight with an opponent at any time. However, thanks to this unique peaceful environment, it caused Lin Dong's state of mind to become increasingly mild and peaceful. Meanwhile, the viciousness and antisocial behavior that was drilled into his bones in the ancient battlefield was slowly being withdrawn. Huff. A meager form sat cross-legged quietly before the black-colored stone tablet. After a long time, the black-colored eye on the surface of the stone tablet suddenly blinked once. Wave after wave of mysterious fluctuations started being emitted. In the end, most of them shot directly into the grey line present on the forehead of the figure. The grey line gradually dissipated, before Lin Dong's eyes gradually opened. A mysterious grey flash flickered across his eyes before a smile appeared on his face. "Looks like you have made good training progress on the Desolate Demon Eye." A hoarse voice rang out from behind Lin Dong. He turned around and gave a smile toward the blind old man who was holding onto a broom before he said, "This is all thanks to the guidance from Senior Uncle Ji Yu Mo." If they were going by status, Lin Dong had to address Ji Yu Mo as elder. However, due to the latter's eccentricness, he scolded Lin Dong when he first addressed him as elder and made him change it to Senior Uncle. As Lin Dong was not a person to be constrained by mannerism, he felt that calling him Senior Uncle will help bring them closer. "If you are not talented, any advice that I give will be of no use." "You brat, you are getting more and more greedy," replied the blind old man, while a smile appeared on his fully wrinkled face. He proceeded to say, "You should go. Wu Dao is waiting for you outside the martial arts hall. It seems like he has a task for you." "Yes." Lin Dong was startled for a short while before he smiled and nodded his head. Without saying anything else, he bowed and saluted to Ji Yu Mo before swaggering out. Walking out of the martial arts hall, Lin Dong was not surprised to see Wu Dao, with his hands behind his back. During this 1 month, Lin Dong had rarely met up with him. Thinking about it, it seemed like there are quite a few internal matters within the sect. Being the vice head of the desolate hall, it was natural that Wu Dao would be much busier than someone like him, who was merely concerned with training. "You sure know how to network. It hasn't been a few months, yet you actually managed to win over senior brother Ji Yu Mo. At this present moment, even I can't disturb you during your training." When Wu Dao saw Lin Dong walked out of the hall, he involuntarily chuckled before he chided him. Hearing this, Lin Dong smiled. Never would he have imagined that Senior Uncle Ji Yu Mo was actually so suave. He actually forced Wu Dao to wait outside the martial arts hall. "What is going on, Senior Uncle Wu Dao?" asked Lin Dong while he blinked and grinned. Yes, this time you will have to make a trip out of the sect. There are missions that the higher-ups want you disciples to complete. You can treat it as a training trip. Since you are new, you won't be assigned with major responsibilities. After all, there will be other hall disciples. Just learn to adapt to it, said Wu Dao with a smile. Going out of the sect? Lin Dong gawked for a moment before nodding his head. He knew that for these super sects, there is a high possibility that they would assign missions for their disciples in order to train them. From the looks of it now, it seems like he would be taking part in one now. Follow me, I take you to meet your buddies who would be traveling together with you, said Wu Dao, who shot a smile towards Lin Dong, before proceeding to turn around and walk off. Lin Dong looked at Wu Dao's back in doubt. The smile present on that old fellow's face was slightly odd and strange. However, he did not ponder on this issue. With a twist of his body, he quickly chased up to Wu Dao. The two of them dashed past all the groups of mountains within the desolate hall before descending on a gigantic platform towards the north. After descending, Lin Dong took a quick glance around, before his facial expression turned into one of doubt. At this moment, on the platform, a young girl at the prime of her youth, dressed in a white blouse and a green skirt, was staring lazily at him. Within those bright and beautiful big eyes, were a peculiar elf-like sadism and a deeply hidden feeling of intrigue. This young lady was precisely the one who called Lin Dong a shameless braggart, proud and aloof when he first entered Dao sect, Ying Huan Huan. Sunlight shone down from the sky and turned into rays that lit up the lady's alluring and slender body on the platform. She looked extremely dazzling. A head full of dark black hair was tied up into a simple ponytail, which hung softly on her body till her waist. Her ponytail was slightly curled, giving her the feeling of youth and liveliness that was quietly blossoming. This would definitely brighten up the mental state of the surrounding individuals who saw her. Anyone who laid their eyes on this lovely and pure young lady would feel quite joyful. Lin Dong, however, was the only exception. When he saw Ying Huan Huan's beautiful face, he involuntarily rubbed his nose. It turns out that his traveling buddy this time around was actually her. Only now did he finally realize why Wu Dao's smile looked so strange. It seems like that old fellow had known about it all along. Lin Dong's eyes lingered on Ying Huan Huan for a while, before he turned away. Glancing at her side, there were two young men standing arrogantly. The two of them were tall and thin and they looked fairly dashing. One of them was dressed in white, while the other was dressed in black. From a single glance, one could tell that they gave off an imposing aura. When they occasionally glanced at Lin Dong, one could easily identify a tinge of arrogance in their looks. Naturally, Lin Dong did not care about this. His desolate hall has been ranked last for the past few years. Therefore, when disciples from the other three halls looked at them, they naturally felt a sense of superiority. Based on the yuan power fluctuations emitted from their bodies, which did not lose out to Jiang Hao, Lin Dong was able to deduce that they must hold a pretty respectable status in their respective halls. In fact, they may even be senior direct disciples as well. Hence, it was reasonable for them to be slightly arrogant. An old man with a head full of white hair beamed and looked towards Wu Dao and Lin Dong, who were descending on the platform. He smiled and said, "Ha ha, the members from Desolate Hall have arrived." Wu Dao smiled and nodded his head. He bowed at the old man before introducing him to Lin Dong. "This is Elder Bai Hua. So this little brat is Lin Dong from your Desolate Hall, who has recently become quite a sensation. Entering the hall for less than a month and becoming a senior direct disciple. It seems like he might have broken some records," said the old man with a smile, while he stared at Lin Dong. After the old man spoke, behind him, Ying Huan Huan could not help but shoot a glance at Lin Dong. She naturally knew about this incident as well. Furthermore, when she first heard about it, not only her but even her elder sister Ying Xiaoxiao was slightly startled. Evidently, both of them had never expected that Lin Dong could actually become a senior direct disciple in Desolate Hall within such a short period of time. "Elder, you've overpraised me. It was all thanks to the generosity of my senior brothers, who let me pass their tests," replied Lin Dong with a faint smile. When he heard Lin Dong's modest reply, the white-haired old man was quite pleased. Stroking his beard, He nodded his head, faced Wu Dao and said, "Not arrogant and not hot-tempered. He is a good seed. Looks like this time your desolate hall got lucky." "That is," said Wu Dao, while laughing without a shred of politeness. The behavior Lin Dong displayed during this period had consistently exceeded his expectations. At this rate, if Lin Dong was given time, his future achievements would definitely be quite spectacular. The white-haired old man laughed before turning his attention towards Lin Dong and the other three and said, Huan will be the leader for the mission. As for the specific details, she will update and brief all of you once you guys are on your way." When he heard the old man's words, it caused Lin Dong to gawk for a moment. He could not resist but looked doubtfully at the young lady in front of him, who was wearing a white blouse and a green skirt. She looked exactly like a naive and innocent young girl. Why did the elder choose her to be the leader? A crack appeared at the corner of Lin Dong's mouth. He was a person who had come out of a place like the ancient battlefield. However, he had never expected that they would actually choose a silly little lass to be their leader. Moreover, what really stunned Lin Dong was the reactions of the two males after the white-haired old man spoke. The two of them from Earth and Flood Hall did not have a shred of objection, as if they were completely agreeable with this arrangement. "Could it be this little lass is not as simple as she seems?" murmured Lin Dong secretly. "Yes? Do you have a problem with Elder Baihua's arrangement?" Just as Lin Dong murmured in his heart, a clear and sweet-sounding voice rang beside his ear. Raising his head, the first thing he saw was Ying Huan revealing a smile so sweet it could make bones turn soft. However, within her big beautiful eyes, Lin Dong could identify a cunning fox-like nature. Immediately, he suavely waved his hand and said, "I will do whatever Elder has instructed." Lin Dong's swift response caused Ying Huan's crescent-shaped eyebrows to jump slightly. However, she could only swallow the words that were about to leave her mouth. Curling the corner of her mouth, she said, "I've led groups out of the sect for over 10 times. Thus, I have much more experience than you newbies. In this world, being older does not automatically give you the right to be arrogant." The moment those words came out of her mouth, it caused Wu Dao and Elder Baihua to gawk. Promptly, they could only shake their heads helplessly. Even innocent bystanders like them were roped into this conflict. Seems like this lass's mouth is still so sharp. Lin Dong's expression did not change. Although the contrast between Ying Huan's age and her experience left him surprised, that was all to it. Perhaps Lin Dong cannot match up to her in terms of knowledge and experience. However, having slaughtered his way out of the cruel ancient battlefield, Lin Dong possessed the cautiousness and ruthlessness that these super sect disciples did not have. However, when Ying Huan saw Lin Dong's calm expression, she immediately clenched her teeth. "This fellow is simply too disrespectful, let's go." Ying Huan casually shot a glance at Lin Dong. Following which, without hesitation, she extended her semi-transparent jade-like finger. It looked like a perfect piece of artwork and caused one to be unable to tear their gaze away. Dong. Ying Huan's slender jade-like finger waved around casually in the space before her. A clear sound unexpectedly rang out, before it dissipated in the sky. Hiss. Not long after the dissipation of that sound, a clear cry rang out from a huge verdant mountain not far away. The sound came from a large green condor that flew over to the platform while carrying along crazy gusts. "Let go, we will leave and return quickly." As her alluring body flashed, Ying Huan mounted the green condor. Upon seeing this, the disciples from Earth and Flood Hall quickly followed behind her. Lin Dong hesitated for a moment before saluting to Wu Dao and Baihua and leaving. Hua. After the three of them boarded the green condor, Ying Huan gave it a light pat. It began to flap its gigantic wings, creating crazy gusts before it took off with a lightning speed. On the platform, Wu Dao looked at the green condor in the horizon, before turning his head around and asked, "Are they headed towards the Blood Cliff grounds this time?" "Yes. That place is very chaotic with a mix of good people and scumbags." "Is it all right to let 4 youngsters go?" asked Wu Dao while frowning. "Relax, nothing will happen to them. Our Dao sect has a yuan mine at that area. According to the reports, there is some strange activity occurring there. I believe that it should be some demonic beasts wreaking havoc." The four of them are all top individuals from their respective halls. Therefore, I believe that they should be able to settle this issue, replied Bai Hua with a smile. After hearing his reply, Wu Dao did not speak further. However, within his heart, uncertainty unknowingly started to bubble up. Above the horizon, the green condor's flapping wings create crazy gusts as it flew through the sky. The speed they were traveling at was as quick as lightning. Lin Dong sat cross-legged on the back of the green condor. This condor was obviously not a normal creature. It was emitting energy from its body, which completely blocked the crazy gusts that it generated. Therefore, they were able to sit peacefully on its back. Ying Huan was seated at the front of the green condor. The two disciples from Earth and Flood Hall were quite familiar with her and sat slightly behind her. From their conversation, Lin Dong could sense that the two of them fancied her. This was no surprise to Lin Dong, as Ying Huan is not only exceptionally talented, but she was adorable, cute and lovely as well. Furthermore, she gave off a pure and innocent vitality that could infect anyone. In fact, even Lin Dong found it hard to resist. As such, it was not surprising that the two of them would fancy her. Lin Dong gradually withdrew his gaze from Ying Huan and the two of them. Looking towards the sea of trees that were rapid retreating, he could not help but think of Little Martin and Little Flame. I wonder how they are right now? Lin Dong pursed his lips. Little Martin and Little Flame had been gone for over a month. However, Lin Dong had yet to receive any updates from the both of them. Although he knew that they would not face any major issues due to Little Martin's abilities, it was inevitable that he still felt a little worried in his heart. After being accustomed and relying on their presence during numerous struggles and fights, Lin Dong was somewhat unable to adapt with their sudden separation. Hey! Just as Lin Dong was slightly absent-minded, a melodious voice rang out from the front. He raised his head while staring blankly in front for a while before the surrounding scenery retreated rapidly around him. The young lady in a white blouse and a green skirt tilted her head and stared at him. Her pitch-black ponytail brushed across the nape of her neck. Coupled with her bright and beautiful big eyes, which were akin to a lac, she looked exceptionally beautiful. What? After being slightly absent-minded due to such a soul-stirring scene, Lin Dong regained his consciousness and asked. You are quite antisocial. Everyone here is your senior. Your actions would cause others to assume that you are proud and aloof. Our Dao sect disciples do not behave in this manner during missions, replied Ying Huan. The tone of her voice coupled with her young ladylike appearance was quite comical. Lin Dong felt quite helpless. Isn't it clear you guys were deliberately ignoring me? Why am I being criticized for being proud and aloof now? We can be considered as comrades for this mission. Since you are a newbie, we will take good care of you. Don't be nervous and just treat it as a training exercise. Since you left with all four limbs attached to your body, I will make sure that you will return without any pieces of meat missing, replied Ying Huan with a grin. Lin Dong rubbed his nose and could not resist but laugh. He had a slightly favorable impression of the young lady in front of him. Although she was somewhat weird and bizarre, she was definitely not a bad person. Ha ha, junior brother Lin Dong, please relax. We will handle anything that happens. Just use this trip to gain some experience, said the two males from Earth and Flood Hall, standing beside Ying Huan while laughing merrily. However, there was a sensation of pride within their laughter. Lin Dong gave a faint smile without showing his approval or disapproval. I've heard that you have successfully learned the desolate demon eye of the desolate hall, asked Ying Huan suddenly as she stared at Lin Dong. After she asked this question, the pupils of the two males expanded for a while. Evidently, they had heard of the desolate demon eye. I got lucky and was barely able to master it. Lin Dong hesitated for a moment before he nodded his head and replied. Oh. Ying Huan gave a slight nod, before a slight tinge fleeted across her beautiful pupils. She could clearly remember the shocked expression on her elder sister's face when she heard the news. Ying Huan did a lazy stretch, exposing her soft waist which showcased her alluring curve. After casually shooting a glance at Lin Dong, she said, I really couldn't tell that you are quite talented. I will now withdraw my initial appraisal that you are arrogant, said Ying Huan. After hearing her words, Lin Dong instantly did not know whether to cry or to laugh. Although Ying Huan had taken back her words of him being arrogant, that still meant that her appraisal of him being extremely boastful was still stuck to him. As for the other one, we will talk about it after you have comprehended the Great Desolation scripture. As if she knew what Lin Dong was thinking of, Ying Huan's soft and gentle voice was transmitted over once again. Looking at the charming cheeks of the young lady, Lin Dong gave a smile and replied, "If my memory serves me right, I recalled you saying that if I understood the Great Desolation scripture, you will fulfill one of my requests, right?" Ying Huan gawked for a moment before a crimson shade appeared on her cheeks. She proceeded to bite her lip and maliciously shot a look at Lin Dong before twisting her body away. "I am only afraid that you don't have the ability to fulfill this criterion." Staring at the form of the young lady, who was slightly outraged, Lin Dong gave a faint smile. It seems like this mission would not be so boring as he had thought. This video will end here.